pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, if you would please conduct the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Schlegel.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds. Here. Mayor Stonehouse.
Here. Commissioner Smith is delayed, but should be here in the next 15 minutes or so. So I don't think we need to do a motion. We'll just by consensus allow her to enter the meeting when she arrives. Commissioners, that brings us to the approval of the agenda. If I can have a motion to approve it. Commissioner Campana.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second.
Any further discussion?
None.
Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. That brings us down to boards and committees and
Announcements, Your Honor.
announcements. We're going to do announcements, which will be a listing of those committee vacancies that we have. The Board of Zoning Appeals, 2 openings. Board of Review, 2 openings. Brownfield Redevelopment, 1. Harbor Advisory, 1. Investment Advisory Board, 2. Local Development Finance Authority, 2. Local Officers Compensation Commission, 2. Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Advisory Board, 1. Marquette County Transit Authority, 1. Presque Isle Advisory Committee, 2. And the Planning Commission, 1 opening. I encourage, as I'm sure all commissioners do, folks to please step forward and take one of those vacant positions. They really are extraordinarily important to the running of the city, to the management of the city, and how the City Commission gains its information and recommendations from the public is very often through these boards. So I, again, encourage everyone to really consider that. The applications for any of the boards or committees are available online. If you have any doubts about that or other questions, please contact the commissioner, and I'm sure we can get you set up the right way. That brings us down then to boards and committees, and to welcome a new member, Liberty Turner, to the Marquette Housing Commission. Liberty, if you could please step up to the front.
Over here? Over there. Sorry.
I'm told I have to use this microphone so the folks at home can understand what we're saying here. But I'd like to thank you very much for joining the Housing Commission. You're coming on to it certainly during a very difficult time with the Pine Ridge issue and finally getting that all straight and hopefully moving forward. But it takes citizens to step forward and to help push the wagon up the hill. And thank you very much for your willingness to do that. I also have a Marquette, or City of Marquette pin for you, which I ask you to use very cautiously because I'm told it has superpowers. But again, thank you very much.
I, Liberty Turner, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan and the Charter Township of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Marquette Housing Commission and the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability. All right. Thank you.
Commissioners, we have 2 appointments, items number 2 and items number 3, 1 reappointment. If I can have a motion from a commissioner on the appointments, that would be appreciated. Commissioner Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we appoint Cody Mayer to the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for unexpired term ending February 1st, 2021, and Robert Hyde to the Presque Isle Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending April 1st, 2022.
May I have a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No, I just thank both of these gentlemen for joining us.
Commissioner Frazier?
Thanks a lot for the help.
Any other commissioner? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes. Yes. Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0.
7-0.
You snuck in. 7-0. That brings us to item number 3, which is a reappointment. And commissioners, again, if I can have a motion on the reappointment. Commissioner Schlegel?
I'd make the motion to reappoint Leslie Hartman to the Local Development Finance Authority for a term ending 08/01/23.
Is there a second? Commissioner Smith?
Second.
Any further discussion from either motion maker? No. Any further discussion, any other commissioner? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes. Yes. Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. That brings us now to our first public comment period. Comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when making public comments. Anyone desiring to make public comments, this is your opportunity to do so.
Frank Jeff Barrow, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. These are my opinions. Mr. Stonehouse's reminders about decorum are unneeded. By asserting his authoritarianism against a citizen, he attempted to divert attention from the key issues onto me. I spent hours researching and rewriting comments to be delivered in a reasonable tone within the allotted time. I'm unable to edit these comments while standing here to fit Mr. Stonehouse's subjective interpretation of his subjected rules. August 12th, I commented on the manager's failure to have east-west crosswalks painted at Ridge and Front for 2 seasons now, even a year after first being told. While I mentioned the possibility of someone getting hit there, Mr. Campana laughed obnoxiously for the 3rd time during that comment. I asked him what's so funny about someone being run down. He retaliated by interrupting my comment, claiming none of it pertained to the manager. He again refused to offer specifics, which included the crosswalk, failure to remove the fence at Lighthouse Park until last week, cutting our green spaces, lack of decent depictions and descriptions on agendas, and goofing around at meetings. We note again how Mr. Campana attracts the very responses he abhors. In fact, were it not for his interruption, I wouldn't be here tonight. When he interrupted, I kept speaking because the comment was almost over, and the last time Mr. Stonehouse stole the time from me that was taken by the interruption, or legally mandated 3 minutes, which he ended up honoring on August 12th, but I had no way of knowing he would. His misconduct of last April 29th precipitated my reaction on August 12th. Mr. Stonehouse commenced to remind me of his rules of decorum then and before my next comments, yet the only soul losing his cool was Mr. Stonehouse. Mr. Campana instigated this by laughing at my mention of pedestrian safety and by playing the hero for the manager. All 3 of his recent interruptions proved frivolous. For his information, the manager is responsible for street striping, the destruction of our green spaces, adequate depictions and descriptions, and is plain as day goofing around during several meetings. How are these items not his responsibility? If my comments are so awful, why did Mr. Campana laugh? This further illustrates the arrogance that prevails in our city government. Both men have tried to reduce our comment opportunities every time it's come up. We've documented their alleged attempts to override the tenets of the Open Meetings Act and the constitutions they swore to uphold. They've been urged to let our attorney interject if he hears a violation. Yes, yet they refuse to consult him despite many reminders because they well know it's appropriate for a resident to report on city officials in a controlled manner. If they so oppose our right to free speech, they're in the wrong venue. They are the only souls I've ever met who are afraid of their own attorney.
Anyone else to address the commission? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. That brings us down to presentations. Item 4, a life-saving effort. Police Chief Blake Reball will come forward for that.
Thank you, Your Honor and Commissioners. Myself and Officer Tim Forsland are here tonight and honored to be here tonight to present the life-saving award to two individuals who were involved in a pretty heroic situation at the 4th of July parade here in Marquette. Eric Johnson, come on up, please, and Justin Gustafson. Most everybody's probably aware that we had a serious accident during the 4th of July parade in Marquette. A 9-year-old girl who was participating in the parade was accidentally run over by a float parade trailer. That instance caused her to go into cardiac arrest. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gustafson were right on scene when this happened and were able to render aid and begin the CPR process. Through that process, it allowed us, Officer Forsland and myself, who were at the tail end of the parade on the parade detail cleanup, to respond and call the appropriate EMS personnel to come and arrive on the scene and eventually transport the 9-year-old to the hospital where she was treated and later transferred down to Milwaukee. It is through their efforts tonight on the 4th of July that I would like to recognize tonight who I honestly believe saved this young girl's life. It was truly a heroic situation, and Officer Forsland and I have been officers for almost 25 years, and unfortunately, a lot of these type of situations end up very tragic, and in this case, it was not. And I'm proud to report that the individual has made a full recovery and is back to doing what a 9-year-old likes to do. So it's with that I'd like to recognize Mr. Gustafson and Mr. Johnson for the tremendous job they did on the 4th of July here in the city of Marquette. Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief. There's many things that give me pleasure as being representative of the commission as mayor, and this is one of them. The opportunity to recognize people for doing something truly heroic, something that makes Marquette a very special place, and especially something that saves a human life, and a child in this instance, is just a wonderful thing. I cannot express in better terms the value you have placed on this, and really how you've honored all of us as we are trying in some small way to honor you for what you have done. I have two certificates on behalf of the City Commission, but really on behalf of all of the citizens of Marquette, and that's really where these are coming from. Mr. Johnson, this one for you. Eric and I have known each other for a long time, and that was a real error on my part. I had a couple of knees replaced, and Eric was my therapist for recovery of those knee replacements. So he was the guy that was bending your leg as you were saying, maybe that's too far. No, Eric, I know extraordinarily well, but Mr. Gustafson, thank you very much. And if we could have a real round of applause for Eric. That brings us to items, rather a public hearing, which would be
It's a presentation.
two of them in
Your
question, rather. Presentation, my error. Police Chief Pension Board by Chair Kirk Wagner. Kirk, if you would please come up.
Yes. Following that, this is a heck of a lot more boring. Should have switched those presentations. But my name's Kirk Vogler. I've been with the City Fire Department for 8 years, for those of you who don't know me. I've sat on the Police and Fire Pension Board for the same amount of time. This is going to be short. It just is a real quick snapshot of the pension system and kind of where it stands. So our purpose and goal is to monitor this pension system pursuant to Public Act 345, which is the governing body, kind of sets the standards for it. It was adopted April 5th of 1965 for the members of the Police and Fire Department. And it provides for the establishment, maintenance, and administration of the retirement system for the benefit of those members. This is the current board and a little bit of the background. I already explained mine. My term actually ends this October. Mike Archikowski sitting right there. He's the city he's our secretary on the board, and he's been there since 2016. Mary Schlick, city treasurer, she's right there. Those of you who don't know, she's been a member since 2015. Gigi Gordon, she's not here tonight. She's been a member since 2014, and we currently have one vacancy. The way the board works is that a member from the police department, a member from the fire department, both get appointed to it by their union bodies. And then the city treasurer sits on there as the liaison for it. And then we have 2 community members, so we do have one vacancy we're trying to get filled. We had 12, or number of meetings we had last year, 12 monthly meetings approximately every 4th Tuesday. Sometimes they get modified, but usually they're 8:30 in the morning. This year we had 10 regular meetings, 2 were canceled, lack of quorum, and no unexcused absences. This is the important page. If you're going to focus in on one, it's the status of the pension system. We have 32 current police officers paying into it, 26 current firefighters for a total of 58, and then our retired side, we have 40 police, 30 fire for a total of 70 drawing from the plan, 4 deferred. So that means they got vested in the plan, but they're no longer employed by the city. As of July 31st, the pension fund was at $35 million, just over $35 million, and it sits at 73% funded as of December of 18. Some of the accomplishments, since changing investment managers, August of 2013, the fund's grown by 6.81%. And we just did an RFP here this past year, and we ended up sticking with Wells Fargo after looking at everything. They were the most competitive and offered us the most services. Public Act 345 states how those investments have to be allocated. So to see almost a 7% growth is we're quite pleased with. We were able to issue a 13th check. So this plan, this retirement system doesn't have a cost of living adjustment or anything. When you retire, you receive that amount until you pass away. So when we're able to issue a 13th check, which is an extra check, try to offset that, we're happy to do so. There's 57 eligible recipients. We distributed $20,000, so gave an average of $350 per recipient. Every year there's a summary annual report put together, and it's kind of the pension system. It gets a little bit more in depth than this presentation does, but we distribute that. It's on the city website. It goes out to all the members and whatnot. Goals, to continue to monitor and maintain and review investment activity for the pension fund, obviously, and to continue to manage and operate the retirement system, ensuring its viability for current and future retirees of the police and fire departments of the city of Marquette. Issues and discussion, retention of trustees. We had a full board up until just recently. We lost a member. It makes a big difference, I can tell you. We have to have 3 for a quorum, so a lot of times it's hard to get everybody there, especially in the summer months. So having that extra member is very vital to keep that quorum so we can actually transact business. And then getting that funding status up to 73% or up to 80% is our goal. That's a pension system sitting in really, really good status. We have an actuarial performed. They come up and they're a heck of a lot smarter than I am. But our current funding level is, using his words, is in a good place, and it's moving in the right direction. So, finding strategies to facilitate a program that now has more retirees than active members. Going back to that other page real quick, let me shoot back to it. We've got 70 members drawing on it and 58 putting into it. So finding strategies for that's always important. And then we just heard too, Wells Fargo is transitioning to Principal Financial Group. And they're keeping us abreast of everything that's taking place. It's going to be a long transition. They were talking 12 to 18 months, so it's really slow. We're still going to have a local contact, which we're really happy about, but just continued communication and correspondence back and forth and clarity. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
Excellent. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Now we can move into the public hearings. That would be item 6, and that's amendments to the Land Development Code. Clerk, if you could please read the background.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. On Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for consideration of several draft amendments to the Land Development Code. The draft amendments would affect 8 of the 14 articles of LDC and address all of the possible LDC amendments that are needed at this time. The Planning Commission took the following action in this matter. It was moved by A. Roots, seconded by A. Andres, and approved 6-0 that after review of the draft amendments to the Land Development Code presented in case 01-ZOA-07-2019, in consideration of the Community Master Plan guidance or text amendments to zoning ordinances, and after conducting a public hearing and considering public comments, the Planning Commission finds that the draft amendments to the LDC are appropriate as amended during this meeting today, July 23rd, 2019, and therefore recommends these draft amendments to be considered for final approval by the City Commission. The City Commission on July 29th, 2019, scheduled tonight's public hearing for consideration of the draft amendments to the Land Development Code recommended by the Planning Commission. If these amendments are approved, they will take effect on September 5th, 2019. Fiscal effect none. Recommendation, adopt ordinance number 681, an ordinance to amend, repeal, and adopt several articles of Marquette City Code Chapter 54, Land Development Code. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Mr. Stankiewicz, do you have any additional background we should know?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and for the City Commission's knowledge, I just wanted to kind of summarize very quickly what you're looking at, because it looks to be a little thick, and there's a lot of highlighted things in there. But really what it is if you recall, the City Commission gave direction to the Planning Commission to address the pole sign issue. That is now taken care of, so the pole signs are now permitted in the DDA and 3rd Street districts. There are a number of fence issues that needed to be cleaned up, which were also in the 3rd Street corridor, where people can now have fences in places they couldn't before. It also clears up a number of overly prescriptive standards in the code. There was a situation where the code actually described the exact size that an awning might need to be in terms of a minimum requirement, and that did not leave a lot of flexibility for people that are looking to make an investment. And it also provides for outdoor recreation opportunities on private parcels as kind of like a private enterprise. And the reason it's so thick is because that gets repeated a lot of places throughout the document. So that's why you have kind of a thick amount of material in there. But Ms. Cardillo, Chair of the Planning Commission, is here if there's any questions related to the Planning Commission aspect of this. And I'd just like to say thanks to the Planning Commission and my staff for turning this around in a very short time. Not necessarily the sign issue, but the other items that are addressed are based upon running checklists that they have where they uncover things that might be challenges as we move forward.
Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Stankiewicz? Commissioner Hill?
Did the animal husbandry change, is that in this version, or has that already been done in terms of reducing the size you need? Has that been addressed here? Oh, the chickens, the size for chickens, did that get addressed in this version?
There was some discussion about that. I don't believe it's been addressed in this version yet. It will be forthcoming.
Okay.
Round 2.
Okay. Yeah, and I should say, this is all part of the process of this enormous change that happened, which was alluded to, but huge amounts of work went into this, and there were things that needed to be cleaned up and updated, and this is all part of these process moving forward. So thank you for the work being done, and folks stepping up and speaking up about what's working and what's not working is how this change happened. So I hope that if other folks run into things, they also contact the Community Development Planning Department and let them know.
Commissioners, any other questions of Mr. Stankiewicz?
Your Honor, are we going to have a public hearing?
Right,
Yeah,
we'll
after
do that directly.
Okay.
Seeing none, now it's time for a public hearing. The reason I delayed the hearing a little bit was I wanted to have all the latest information out in the public eye before we had a hearing, so people had an opportunity to understand what the changes really reflected, some of the process involved, and now when we have a hearing, they have some basis that they can make, I guess, more refined comments on. That said, the hearing is open, and that is for the amendments to the Land Development Code. Anyone willing or wishing to comment on public hearing, please come forward and do so. Anyone wishing to comment on public hearing for the Land Development Code? The hearing is open now. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, we will need to do this as a roll call vote, but we need a motion to do that. Commissioner Frazier?
I make a motion to approve or adopt ordinance number 681, an ordinance to amend, repeal, and adopt several articles of Marquette City Code, Chapter 454, Land Development Code.
Is there a second? Commissioner Schlegel?
Second motion.
Commissioner Frazier, any further comment?
Keep going.
Commissioner Schlegel?
I just want to thank the Planning Commission for all their hard work.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, I will only echo Commissioner Hill's comments that this is part of a process. Massive document came out. As we go through it and as we discover there might be some glitches in it, this is an opportunity. The Planning Commission goes in, makes those changes, has to bring them back through the entire process for adoption. So much like we did with the food vendor truck issue, where we revisited after a period of time and made some changes, you can expect to see, I don't want to say continuous, but there will be changes as this massive code is tweaked and brought into better compliance with what our citizens want and need. That said, this will be a roll call vote, and clerk, if you will please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the consent agenda. Commissioners, I will need a motion on the consent agenda if I can. Commissioner Smith?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Second.
I have any further comments regarding it?
No comment.
No? None? Any other commissioner?
This requires a roll call as well, Your Honor.
That's right, it will be a roll call. That said, if we can please have a roll call conducted, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Reason for the public that may be at home and not have the virtue of a accurate agenda in front of them. The reason we did that as a roll call as a consent agenda was because there are individual items within the roll call, within the consent agenda, that required a roll call vote. So instead of pulling those out and doing each one individually, we did them all at once, but that's the reason. That brings us to new business, and that would be item number 8, purchase request for city-owned property, a portion of parcel 0240010. That will also require a roll call, and clerk, if you can please read the background.
Thank you, sir. Background. In August of 2018, the city received a request from Carl Newmanen to purchase a portion of parcel 0240010. Mr. Newmanen purchased the adjacent depot building property at 200 South 5th Street and later discovered a property description error. Mr. Newmanen intended to purchase the southern strip of property 25 foot by 175 foot as shown in the attached map to correct the error. In April of 2019, the city and Mr. Newmanen executed a purchase agreement which required closing on the property within 60 days. The purchase agreement expired per these terms, and the city has recently received another offer to purchase this property from Wealth Strategy Group as outlined in the attached letter. Fiscal effect, the city would realize $4,125, which payment is based on the cost of an appraisal and per square foot value based on the appraisal report. Recommendation, adopt the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to direct the sale of the property in accordance with city code. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Schlegel?
I'd make the motion to adopt the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to direct the sale of the property in accordance with city code.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
Commissioner Schlegel, anything further?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Frazier?
Sounds like a good deal for the city.
Any other commissioner comments, discussion? Seeing none, this will require a roll call, and Madam Clerk, if you would conduct it.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes. That brings us to item number 9, which is a redemption of Founders Landing bonds, and that will also require a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, if you would please read us the background.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. Bonds were issued in 2003 and refunded in 2013 for the public portions of Founders Landing. Property has been sold and sufficient funds have been accumulated in order to pay off the remaining debt service principal of $1,105,000. If approved, the bonds will be scheduled to be redeemed on or around September 5, 2019. Original maturity is scheduled for 2023. Fiscal effect: redeeming the Founders Landing bonds will eliminate annual debt service in the approximate amount of $290,000 through the year 2023. Recommendation: approve a resolution authorizing partial redemption of 2013 capital improvement and refunding bonds and authorize the city clerk to sign the resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Campana?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing partial redemption of the 2013 capital improvement and refunding bonds and authorize the city clerk to sign the resolution.
Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem?
Second.
Commissioner Campana, any further comments?
This is really big news for the city. It's like paying off a mortgage. We no longer will be paying $290,000 each year to eliminate the bond. That money will go into the general fund and be able to spend it elsewhere. So it's a really big deal for the city.
Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem?
Nope.
Any other commissioner? I can only echo what Commissioner Campana said. This is a very good move by the city's part. It gives us some more money in the general fund. It retires an old debt. And it's, I think, been very reflective of what the commission has been able to do in the last several months based on some very good moves by previous commissions to place ourselves in this position. This will require a roll call. Madam Clerk, if you could conduct the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. This brings us down to item 10, which is a closed session. And commissioners, before we would go into the closed session, we will need to read a very specific statement making the motion. You all have a copy if anyone would like to do it. Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that the commission go into closed session to under Section 8 of the Open Meetings Act to consult with our attorney regarding trial and settlement strategy in connection with the pending case of Customs House LLC versus the City of Marquette for the reason that an open meeting would be a would have a detrimental financial effect on litigation and settlement position of the city.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
Any further discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
None.
Commissioner Frazier?
No comment.
Any other commissioner comments? For general public, let me just indicate this requires that the chambers be completely cleared when we go to closed session. All those commissioners, no, this will need to be a roll call. That would require, Madam Clerk, if you will please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. We will now go into closed session, and I would ask everyone to please clear the room.
were hoping to go lead.
You guys are tough. Okay. As we are out of closed session, we can move to item 10, or item public comments. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when making public comments. Anyone desiring to make public comments, the period is now open.
Frank Giaverto, these are my opinions. August 17th at 5 o'clock p.m., a jet ski operated illegally close to the buoys at McCarty's Cove. 3 times the machine came close to shore within the swimming area. As I approached the south stand to report the danger, I watched the only 2 lifeguards in sight for roughly 3 minutes. At no time did either guard face the water. The young male guard leaned against the east railing of the enclosure with his hind end facing the lake. He partially blocked the view of the female guard who sat in the chair looking down at her lap for minutes. They chuckled as I came closer as if consumed by a smartphone. All the while, kids waded in the water and hung out on the rocks, which are now farther from land than ever before. Similar behavior has been observed at the north stand. When questioned about the jet ski, the male guards said they were short-staffed. Why then were we paying the only 2 guards at the south stand to goof off? Regarding Pine Ridge, the excuse given for this board's poor response was that they didn't want to get in the way. That excuse may hold water on the first, second, and maybe third day. However, the volunteers stated that 6 complete days had passed with no visible support from any board member or manager, as I reported August 12th. Kudos to our firefighters for their expedience, and perhaps Mr. Stonehouse was there, probably watching. Most everyone likes to watch a fire. The bottom line is that once the smoke cleared and a few critical days passed, the volunteers and displaced residents needed support. They felt ignored at their great time of need. Mr. Stonehouse showed up on day 14, having been reminded the night before that his presence was sought all along. He never thanked me for alerting him to the problem. His manager later said the displaced residents weren't being charged to stay at the arena. Well, isn't that compassionate? 140 of our most vulnerable residents lost their homes to no fault of their own, some with no place to go except to be squeezed amongst each other under pitiful conditions. To so much as mention the fact that they're not being charged was insane. A resident said they received only $450 each for their inconvenience. Other citizens and I wonder how this situation would be handled if 140 big money residents were displaced, whether by machine, malfunction, or carelessness. Yes, the elevators and security systems were damaged, and the air quality diminished, but Rome was built faster. We ought to figure out why, in my 21 years here, the past 5 years have been our worst from a public relations standpoint, and the worst run meetings as well. I thought Mr. Stonehouse would be an improvement, but August 12th alone, he forgot to approve the agenda and to call a man up for reserved time. He then spaced out 2 presentations while our 3 Japanese visitors sat right in front of him, having flown halfway around the world for the occasion. Now, how embarrassing.
Anyone else desiring to address the commission?
Good evening. My name is Margaret Brum, and I live at 404 East Magnetic Street. And for the first time since I've been addressing the commission, I'm going to respond to what was said by the person prior to me. In the course of the last 2 years, I've had the privilege of meeting multiple firemen, policemen, and lifeguards in employment of the city. And for the last 2 months, I've spent about 3 times a week going to the lifeguard station at Clark Lambros Park to see who's using the beach wheelchair. I have never once observed any of those lifeguards doing anything but their jobs. They are impressive young people. They are determined to save people from themselves, to look out for our safety, and to notice things before they're going to happen. One young lady even told me about rescuing animals from a small group of children who were playing with them and were in danger of getting bitten by them. That level of concern needs to be documented. If a member of the public wishes to come to this meeting and trash talk the lifeguards of this city, I would challenge that person to, instead of coming to this commission and tarnishing every lifeguard in this city, to go to the facility that employs them and talk to that person off the record, say who did what at that time so something can be done. Because I will not let this meeting end with the lifeguards of the city of Marquette trash talked. Those kids are more into their jobs than I ever was at that age. And if I fell into the water, as big as I am, they would kill themselves to get me out. And I want you to know that. They also have embraced the additional challenges given to them by the city for that beach wheelchair. They also have embraced a whole bunch of other chores, like keeping the beaches clean and looking out for troubles before they come. So I want you to know that I'm not disbelieving the person who spoke before me. Everybody has their own impression of life. But I don't want that statement to be the last statement on those lifeguards, because I recommend those lifeguards to anybody and told those kids to put it on their resume that they put themselves out there saving other people instead of sitting around posting stuff on Facebook about how cool they are. Those are the coolest young people I know, and this city should be proud of them. And I hope there's a lifeguard appreciation meal at the end of the year for those, okay? I hope there's something other than their last pay period. Because trust me, dealing with the public, not wearing very attractive bathing suit public, dealing with that every day of your career and trying to save people, I just want you to know that's how I feel about it. And I had actually come here tonight to not speak. I had told myself this was one meeting I wasn't going to say, but I will not let that statement be the last thing said about Marquette lifeguards. You got some great lifeguards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else desiring to address the commission? Anyone else desiring? Seeing none, public comments are closed. That brings us to the comments from the commission, and Commissioner Campana, would you begin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Brum, I appreciate your comments very much. I will say that I've been down to the lake a few times. I don't care to swim in that lake, but I've been down there to observe, and being a former lifeguard, I know what it's like to work as a lifeguard, and the people I've seen lifeguarding are doing their job. They're looking straight ahead, they're attentive, and they should be commended. It's not an easy job. The worst thing that can happen, of course, is someone drowns. So there's a lot of responsibility on them, and for someone to come here and criticize them when they don't deserve to be criticized. Is he going to continue to interrupt? He interrupted the speaker last time, waving his arms, and he's over there mumbling.
Mr. Veredo, I'm going to warn you not to mumble, not to talk, to give, please, our city commissioner the same respect we have given you. Thank you. If you cannot do that, I will ask the sergeant-at-arms to have you removed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Frazier.
No, wait, I got more. I got more.
No, I'm, okay.
I got more.
No, go ahead. I'm just ahead of the game.
A couple comments. This past weekend, Rotary West and the other Rotary groups put on Harvest Fest, which included, of course, games, food vendors, and really good music. And they had a good weather. It was a good weekend. There's a lot of people that turned out. They did a really nice job, and I think it really showcased Marquette. It was just a really nice time to be down there, and we got to thank them for the work they do. And the volunteers, area volunteers come in and work, and along with the Rotarians. So it was a very nice weekend. I also would like to note that the South Shore Fishing Association, on Saturday, they sponsored Veterans Appreciation Day. They took close to, 170, 180 veterans out fishing on Lake Superior for a number of hours. And this is just one of the many activities that they do to promote fishing in the Marquette area. They're a very good group. They're very, they do a lot for the area. I'm going to kill everybody's announcements here. I'm going to say we have a budget session on the 28th, which is Wednesday at 5:15. And we have a marijuana workshop September 4th at 5:15. Both of these sessions are in, right here in Commission Chambers. And I'll let somebody else tell about Blues Fest. Thank you, Your Honor.
Great weekend, as Mr. Campana said. Harbor Fest, I went to the thing they had Thursday night, which was a little pre-Harborfest thing, put on by Rotary. It was a great time. They raised a lot of money. People got a lot of good stuff. It was very entertaining. A lot of people had a good time. Harborfest was good. And I agree with Commissioner Campana and Margaret Blum. Our fire department trains lifeguards very well. I've seen the Baywatch movie. I know what I'm talking about. But, I mean, they do a very good job training their lifeguards. They know what they're doing. They know how to respond. I've had a few accidents in the water myself. Been saved many times. They do a great job. And like I've said before, when certain people love the certain person that loves to comment on what the city does wrong, what the commissioners do wrong, what everybody does wrong, what the manager does wrong. Yet he moved here like 20 years ago, and he's never ever run for the city office before. But I've told before, if you want to make a difference, run for city office. You can make a difference by talking to people and raising your voice, and maybe run for mayor sometime. It's possible. Our city manager's done a lot of great work as a chief of police, as manager. Dave Campana is from Farm Trust, has been a great city commissioner. Fred Stonehouse done the same thing. We've all done great work. Very good people. They do a lot of good work in the city. The person that loves to complain about everything the city does, really not the city, he complains about everything the city manager, city mayor, who's ever on commission at the time, that's all he complains about. If he would ever put his mind into what's going on in the city, like, maybe a development or something like that. But we always get feedback from him saying he's an engineer, he knows more than everybody else, and he knows everything. So, but City of Harris's good people, and I agree with Municipal Fire Department. They do a good job training their lifeguards, and lifeguards are great and a priority to the city.
Commissioner Hill?
And I want a comment on this busy weekend. Of course, it was NMU move-in weekend, and kudos to the many moving vehicles. Moving vehicles, moving people. I did have a comment from some parents about Lincoln Boulevard being shut down during move-in, and maybe wondering about that coordination. But I explained about short construction times, but I did hear about that. Yes, the announcements of what's coming up. Beer Fest starts on Friday. Tomorrow night is Flat Broke Brews Band in front of the library. And what was there was one other thing, but I'll just have to post it on Facebook. But I think I kudos to starting another school year as we move forward with the new students. It's an exciting time as we close out our summer. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
I have no comments this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to jump on the South Shore Fishing bandwagon and say how awesome I think it is that they do the Veterans Fishing Tournament or the Veterans Day Fishing sponsorship, whatever they want to label it as. But I just think it's one of the best events that happens along our shores all summer long. So thank you to the group for organizing it, and thank you to the veterans for participating in it and for their service in general. That's about all I have. I would say, with all the bodies back in town with school, watch those roundabouts, because there's a lot of newbies coming in, and I would highly recommend taking the extra time, slowing down, because there was a lot of interesting maneuvering going on this past weekend. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm good.
Well, let me just take care of a couple small things. Comment was made there in public comment that the commenters are legally mandated to have 3 minutes. They are not. That is a rule of the commission. You can argue whether that's legal or not, but we could easily make it 2 minutes, we could make it 5 minutes, we could make it unlimited. It's really up to the commission as they set their rules at the beginning of the year. There are some city commissions in Michigan that do not have any public comment. So that's a different way of looking at it. The comment that our attorney will not object if we're doing something illegal, I think is certainly far beyond the pale. I have no doubt that our attorney would be jumping, yelling, screaming, and throwing things if we began to do anything that really crossed that line. That's why we have an attorney here all the time. There's very few meetings of the City Commission where we do not have an attorney present, and that's precisely for that reason. I'm extraordinarily proud of all the people who work for the City of Marquette. I'm extraordinarily proud not only of our lifeguards, as you know, they have been demonstrating all summer, but certainly for the police, the fire, DPW workers, everybody that works for this city. I feel like I've talked to at one point or another, or I've watched work, or I've interplayed with, and they are just an extraordinarily good bunch of people that are really have their heart in the right place. They want to do the best work they can, and they are. And I think all of us, as we see them out and about, need to just thank them for what they're doing and understand what they're doing, because, again, they're doing it for all of us. And to see them run down is just very disheartening. Lastly, a couple weeks ago, we had the incident in the Fitch Strip where some ne'er-do-well, some despicable, I can't use words to even describe it, painting swastikas. I mean, that's not graffiti. That's something else. And I don't know whether I would claim that to be a legitimate hate crime or not. I think it probably goes over the line and is. And I would certainly hope that when they're caught, that the prosecutor will put the full body of law on it, and that we will not see any plea bargains. We will see the full force of the law applied, and I would certainly hope that we would at least have that, because that's not Marquette, that's not who we are under any stretch of the imagination. And you just cannot look at that kind of thing and not just get sick to your stomach that there's people out there that would do it. That goes far beyond simply spraying your name there with a can of spray paint. That said, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and very quickly, just one thing, and thank you for continuing to support the agendas that we bring forward. You know, as much as I wanted to make the payoff of the bond the news item of the night, none of the TV stations wanted to talk about that. They wanted to talk about other things. So, but thank you very much. We're continuing to do good things.